Thank you, Deputy Chairman, sir. Let me start with a quotation from Justice Hidayatullah while he was deciding a matter way back in the 60s about a book called Lady Chatterley's Lover. It had been proscribed. So he said, no books are good or bad. They're either well written or badly written. Taking it further, I would say any budget is neither good or bad. Some portions are good, some portions are error of judgment, and some portions, I would say, are lost opportunities. This is a world of AI. And in a world of AI, there's a very apt Hindi saying, Guru ki jagah humne Google ko de di. Guru ki jagah हमने गूगल को दे दी जानकारी से ज्यादा समझदारी में कमी है we have lot of जानकारी but less समझदारी. Now the positive points are, yes ma'am, I remember I had raised the SMA issue, spinal muscular atrophy issue, many years back. You were the finance minister. I said 2,500 children die every year. The drug costs 21 crores. 16 crores is the cost and 7 crores is the excise. That issue has been largely addressed, and I say that thank you for that. I also say that cancer medicines and life-saving medicines, custom duties on these has been reduced from 10% to 0%. It's a positive step. Reduction in custom duty on raw material for leather, garments and footwear from 10 to 0 is a positive step. Although this happened after 11 budgets by this government, 7th by the Honorable Finance Minister, when India has lost the competitive edge to Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia and China. You abolished the angel tax. It's welcome. Tax rate for foreign companies have been slashed. I'm not sure whether this will enhance the FDI, but we have nothing against it. But ma'am, the error of judgment starts when you missed the middle class. The finance minister stated in this budget is for the middle class, whereas it should have been of the middle class. Yes, you have not really addressed the middle class because in your budget, indirect taxes instead of direct taxes were how you began the budget. Knowing very well that indirect taxes are regressive, take a much larger percentage of low-income individuals. Just as a matter of some calculations, contribution of taxes, today indirect taxes in 2010 constituted 55%, in 22 it was 66%. Direct taxes in 2010 were 44%, in 22 there are 34%. Directly affects poor as they pay more tax on goods and services. Indirect taxes are non-equitous in the sense it covers the poor and the rich together. Direct taxes are people who are earning. So indirect taxes, in my opinion, should always be taken as a second step, not the first step of earning. Then you have corporate gross revenue receipts. Corporate tax was 37% in 2010, 22 it was 26. Personal income tax was 17% in 2010, it was 28 in 22. Increase in percentage of personal income tax collection, then the corporation shows that the government is collecting more from middle class households. Reduction in corporate taxes in 2019 only benefited company promoters. Ma'am, the 18% GST being charged on life and medical insurance, I would say if there is the biggest challenge that any class today faces, it is the middle class. For the poorer section, you have the Ayushman scheme. For the rich, it doesn't matter. But for the middle class, half of them, mediclaims don't work, or if they work, they are not sufficient. And it's a huge challenge and a huge burden for the middle class. And I would say today, it is a sin to fall ill in a middle-class family. If somebody falls ill in a middle-class family, believe me, sometimes they get wrecked, sometimes they get ruined. Coming to farmers, ma'am, custom duty on ammonium nitrate increased from 7.5% to 10%, while subsidy on fertilizers has been reduced. Farmers will get directly impacted as their input costs will increase. 2, statutory demand for minimum support price not delivered, which is the biggest demand of the farmers in the country today. And third, however, the fertilizer subsidy has been decreased by 1 lakh crore. No pro-farmer sentiment in this budget can be seen. And that is why, ma'am, I think the farming community, I'm sure, must not be very overjoyed or joyed with this budget. The Indian pharmacy. The Indian pharmacy is one of our best sectors. Drastic hike on custom duty on laboratory chemicals from 10% to 150% has now broken, will convert this flourishing industry into a struggling industry. Indian pharmaceutical industry is estimated at around 50 billion. India ranks 3rd worldwide for pharmaceutical production by volume and export pharmaceuticals to more than 200 countries and territories. R&D will be affected, specifically pertaining to pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Research in general will be affected. India spends 0.6% of its GDP on R&D. You are killing that also. Capital gains. I would say, in short, the short-term capital gains increase from 15 to 20%, and securities transaction tax, STT, on capital gains, which when the stock market is witnessing exponential growth in terms of retail investors, mostly from the middle class and young people. Young India finds this fascinating. It's the young people today who are the biggest participants in the stock market. They may not be the richest people, but they may be the most enthusiastic participants. National Stock Exchange alone saw retail investors' share grow from 33% in 2016 to 45% in 2021. This shows that the government wants to fund the budget through taxing the middle class. Honorable Finance Minister, if we think deeply or we think briefly, these are the two options before us. Sometimes it is a lack of thought process. More than 2,500 amendments were incorporated in GST law since 2017. A new income tax law seems to be on the anvil. The amended criminal laws have just started troubling the law courts and the lawyers, and now the new income tax law will haunt the taxpayers. Long-term capital gains. All financial and non-financial assets will attract the long-term capital gains at 12.5% in case of equities and decrease from 20% in case of real estate. Indexation benefit removed, but now rolled back partially. I welcome that. Real estate will take a big hit. Construction sector is the biggest employer after agriculture and manufacture. More than 20% of the real estate investment is by NRI. Foreign investment will be drastically impacted because after you opened this sector to foreign investment, NRIs were the biggest participants in this. 20% of the booking is of the NRIs if you analyze the purchase. I would also say the Make in India rollout of 2014, but only after 10 years have we come up with a 6-monthly commitment to review to tackle the distorted custom duty inverted tax structure. No new tax benefits given to startups. Women entrepreneurs left out of the budget. Lost opportunities. Madam Finance Minister, this is your 7th year, and the women of India look at you as an icon. You for them represent their empowerment. But there is no tax slab for women in India. Budget allocation should have been there to promote women entrepreneurs. Every city should have a dedicated complex for women entrepreneurs to work. The need of the hour is to accommodate many micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, women entrepreneurs in one facility, providing them with big and safe office spaces to work. If you really want that pyramid of women who actually contribute to the GDP of India to do well, you need to have these complexes for them. Just putting them as part of a mudra scheme or providing them some skills is not good enough. They just can't afford to buy a property. They just can't afford to buy a house or an area for commercial utilization. So this is an important facet. If you can bring dedicated complexes for women in all major tier 2, tier 3 cities at least. More women hostels for working women should have been set up in cities. Work skill development lacks focus. This is the 7th budget by a finance minister, and the women expected much more. Employment. No scheme formulated for creation of jobs in informal sector. Limits for Mudra loan increased only for previous beneficiaries of the higher slab. Lower slab for new entrants not increased and remains the same. Only the Tarun slab increased from 10 lakhs to 20 lakhs. Ma'am, your internship scheme, I don't believe it can succeed. Internship scheme says 1 crore youth between the age of 21 to 24 years in the next 5 years will get internships in 500 companies. Top 500 companies hire around 70 lakh people. How can they have 1 crore interns? Scope. So what I'm trying to say, this is a myth. Even if you can get this figure completed in 5 years, I would salute you, because I think it's just not possible. It's an ambition, a very ambitious program, which I don't think is on the ground will even take off properly. And then you say that who are the people ineligible to participate? Candidates from IIT, IIM, IISER, CA, CMA, etc. Any member of the family is assessed to income tax. Any member of the family is a government employee. Then how many people are eligible? All these people, I mean, most people would have somebody who's assessed to tax. Most people would have a family member. A lot of people would have family members in government. Now, if all of them are not eligible, then frankly speaking, what is your pool of eligibility? Frankly, it surprises me that we're keeping out such a huge section. How does it serve the purpose at all? Education. Your own National Education Policy 2020 called for allocation of 6% of GDP to education. But allocation is only 0.38% of the GDP. Allocation for higher education has dropped from INR 47,620 crores from the revised estimates of INR 57,244 crores in the 23-24 budget. Only rebranding Nehruvian era institutes such as the IIT, the IIMs, the IIS and JNU as centers of excellence and centers of institutes of eminence would not work. Please think of granting some relief to the students who have taken the education loan in a sector where you don't get employment. How are they going to repay the loans? If there's no relief given to the students, I'm sure it's a huge community whose huge problem goes unaddressed. Today, today the problem is that most of these institutions, instead of being manned by real hardcore professionals, you get them manned by people who are close to your political party or political thinking. I think that's not good for the country. Students should be taught how to think and not what to think. More than 10 lakh students choose to study abroad. Information technology. India saw IT revolution in 80s and 90s because of the least intervention from the government. India captured the imagination of the world by its IT boom. But what are we thinking about the knowledge cities? See, India lacks the knowledge cities that you find in San Francisco, Singapore, Tokyo, Stockholm, due to their strong emphasis on technology, innovation, education and research at high premium. The concept of knowledge cities is alien to this country. Brain drain is at an all-time high, coupled with around thousands of high net individuals leaving the country.
माननीय विवेक जी, आपकी पार्टी के एक और वक्ता।
Railways. One of the most exciting features of the budget used to be the railway budget. That has just disappeared. It's not there. The common man was always waiting to hear the railway budget. The facilities that would come. Madam Finance Minister, more than 6,800 train stations were shut down during citing financial viability. Many artisans, small vendors, micro businessmen and students are all affected because of this. The concept of cheap public transport is not to gain profit, but for a larger social good. Now, let me tell you by example, ticket cost for a tribal in Belgana near Bilaspur in Chhattisgarh used to be 10 to 20 rupees, but now they have to take a bus to pay around 100 rupees. In Japan, even to accommodate one student, they decided to operate a train. So my case is that unless we have an unless the railways open up to the issues of the people, and there are proper budgetary provisions for various improvements and enhancements, this opportunity is a lost opportunity. Defense. Budget allocation for defense is not sufficient. China and Pakistan increased their defense budget by 7.2% and 17.6% respectively in order to boost their defense spending. The defense allocation is 1.9% of the GDP in the present budget, which is the lowest since 1960. What happens to the dream of General Rawat of theaterization? Where is that allocation for theaterization? Defense sector needs massive upgrades and significant strides are to be taken towards the same. India has not been able to capture the market of defense manufacture because of R&D and other deficiencies. We have defense production sector and defense production industries. For example, Jabalpur, from where I come. At one time, these factories used to employ 1.25 lakh people. Today, they employ 10,000 people. And the factories on the verge of virtual closure. I mean, there's hardly any work for the factorymen. Private sector is being stressed, but no outcome of positive results. Ma'am, I remember when you were defense minister, you called a meeting of MPs. You knew the problem of cantonments. You knew the problem that in cantonment the civilians have a huge issue. And today they have all kinds of land issues, they have all kinds of movement issues. And you said, let's try to segregate them. That never happened. You took the first step, but after that first step, the second, third, fourth step never came. So today, this issue of cantonment and army areas being separated is still in limbo. Research and space research. Ma'am, our scientists of DRDO and ISRO are the best in the world. I'm reminded of that film on Nambi Narayan, the ISRO scientist, who suffered. He epitomizes the suffering.
Which film?
Rocketry. Rocketry is his life story, where Supreme Court and courts intervened, gave him compensation. He got a Padma Vibhushan. But after suffering of 15, 20 years, and his brilliance was acknowledged by India at all levels. And how a scientist can be framed in fake cases came out in that whole episode. What I'm trying to say, your best scientists need more hand-holding. They need better pushing. Unless and until we do more for these scientists, how are we going to go further in this whole thing? Semiconductors. I remember semiconductor industry after COVID. It was a supply chain point. We couldn't take advantage of by bringing them from Taiwan. It is Malaysia, and Cambodia and others, Vietnam, who took advantage of it. So my problem today is, ma'am, even though you have worked hard to bring a budget, but at the end of the day, the country also looks for quality workmanship. And what is this quality workmanship? When we have a leaking airport, a leaking train metro station, leaking papers, and now even a brand new leaking parliament, ma'am, I think we have lot to do, lot to change, and lot to take ahead. Thank you.